The old man stood alone in a crowded courtroom in Chicago, Illinois, wearing a faded gray prison uniform and handcuffs that seemed far too heavy for his trembling wrists. His tired eyes stared at the polished wooden floor, accepting a fate he never believed he deserved. The judge had already begun reading the charges, and everyone assumed the lonely janitor's life was over. Then, without warning, the courtroom doors swung open. 3 confident women in elegant black suits walked inside together. Every head turned toward them. The judge stopped speaking. The prosecutor froze. The old janitor slowly lifted his head, unable to believe what he was seeing. 20 years earlier, he had rescued 3 frightened orphan girls with nothing but love, sacrifice, and hope. Now they had returned to save the man who had once saved them. Before we continue, if you believe kindness always finds its way back, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the Echoes of Kindness for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. His name was Thomas Carter, and for nearly 40 years he had quietly worked as a janitor in a public elementary school on the south side of Chicago. Every morning before sunrise, he swept hallways, emptied trash cans, repaired broken desks, and polished classroom floors before children arrived. Few people knew his name. Even fewer knew his story. Thomas never married and never had children of his own. He lived in a tiny apartment filled with second-hand furniture and old photographs of people who were no longer alive. His paycheck barely covered rent, food, and electricity, yet he always found a way to help others whenever he could. Everything changed one cold November evening when Thomas finished work and walked past an abandoned community shelter scheduled for demolition. He heard quiet crying coming from inside the broken building. Following the sound, he discovered 3 terrified sisters hiding beneath torn blankets. The oldest was Grace, only 11 years old. Beside her sat 9-year-old Sarah, while the youngest, 6-year-old Rachel, clung tightly to her sisters. Their parents had died in a tragic highway accident months earlier, and after being separated within the foster system, the girls had run away together rather than lose one another forever. Thomas called the authorities, but after hearing how the sisters feared being separated again, something deep inside him changed forever. He spent months working with social workers, filling out paperwork, attending interviews, and proving that although he was poor, he could provide love, stability, and safety. Many people laughed at the idea that an aging janitor earning minimum wage could raise 3 children alone. Some officials even questioned his decision. But Thomas never gave up. Life became unimaginably difficult. He worked 2 janitorial jobs, sleeping barely 4 hours each night. During the day he cleaned classrooms, and every evening he scrubbed office buildings until midnight. His hands became rough and cracked from endless cleaning chemicals. He often skipped meals so the girls could eat healthy food. He wore the same patched winter coat for nearly 15 years because every extra dollar went toward school supplies, clothes, music lessons, and college savings. Despite their poverty, their tiny apartment overflowed with warmth. Thomas celebrated birthdays using homemade cakes. Every Christmas he repaired old toys bought from thrift stores until they looked new. Every night he helped with homework even when exhaustion blurred his vision. He constantly reminded the girls that kindness, honesty, and education were treasures no one could ever steal. As the years passed, each daughter discovered her own purpose. Grace dreamed of becoming an attorney after seeing families lose everything because they couldn't afford legal help. Sarah developed a passion for medicine after caring for Thomas during one of his severe illnesses. Rachel loved solving complex problems and eventually pursued forensic accounting. Thomas encouraged every dream even when paying tuition seemed impossible. Secretly, he sold nearly everything valuable he owned, including his late father's watch and his mother's wedding ring, to keep their futures alive. Eventually the girls graduated from college with honors. Grace became one of Chicago's most respected defense attorneys. Sarah became a successful emergency physician. Rachel built a remarkable career investigating financial crimes. Although life became busy, they visited Thomas every Sunday, sharing meals, laughter, and gratitude. They constantly reminded him that every success they achieved belonged to him as much as it belonged to them. Then tragedy struck once again. One evening Thomas finished cleaning the offices of a wealthy real estate company. Days later, investigators accused him of stealing nearly $2 million worth of confidential financial records linked to a massive fraud investigation. Security footage appeared to show someone wearing his uniform entering restricted offices after hours. Since Thomas had access to every floor, authorities quickly arrested him. Newspapers called him the janitor who betrayed everyone. His neighbors avoided him. Former co-workers refused to answer his calls. Thomas insisted he was innocent, but no one listened. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Grace immediately believed her father. She knew the gentleman who had sacrificed his entire life would never betray his values. Sarah examined the stress and declining health Thomas suffered inside jail while Rachel began reviewing thousands of financial transactions connected to the investigation. Together they worked tirelessly, refusing to let the man who raised them become another forgotten victim. As the trial began, prosecutors appeared confident. They presented security videos, electronic access records, and witness statements. Everything pointed toward Thomas. Yet Grace noticed tiny inconsistencies buried within the evidence. Rachel uncovered unusual money transfers involving executives from the company. Sarah remembered Thomas's worsening eyesight and medical condition, proving he could never have accurately operated the sophisticated security systems shown in the recordings. Day after day they uncovered more truth. Rachel discovered that a senior executive had hired someone with a similar body shape to wear a janitor's uniform and frame Thomas. The fake employee entered the building using cloned security credentials while company executives quietly erased critical surveillance footage. Their goal was simple. Blame the invisible janitor while they escaped with millions of dollars. When Grace finally presented the complete timeline inside the courtroom, silence filled the room. Expert witnesses confirmed Rachel's findings. Sarah testified about Thomas's physical limitations during the alleged crime. The prosecution's entire case collapsed before everyone's eyes. The judge carefully reviewed the new evidence before delivering his decision. All charges against Thomas Carter were dismissed. Moments later, federal investigators arrested the real criminals inside the same courthouse. The old janitor stood speechless as deputies removed his handcuffs. Tears rolled down his weathered face while Grace, Sarah, and Rachel embraced the man who had once carried all three of them through life's darkest days. Reporters surrounded the family, asking how three remarkable women had accomplished the impossible. Grace answered with simple honesty. Every lesson that won this case had been taught by the janitor who never stopped believing in doing the right thing. News of Thomas's story spread across America. Donations poured in, but Thomas chose to establish scholarships for children leaving foster care instead of keeping the money for himself. He said every child deserved someone who believed in them before the world did. If this story touched your heart, please write the words, "Kindness always returns," in the comments below. We'd love to see how many people still believe compassion can change lives. Years later, visitors often asked Thomas what the greatest achievement of his life had been. They expected him to mention the scholarships or the courtroom victory. Instead, he simply smiled while looking at the three daughters sitting beside him. Wealth had never entered his home. Luxury had never filled his shelves. But love had transformed three frightened little girls into extraordinary women who refused to abandon the man who gave them everything. If this story moved you, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us that even the smallest act of kindness can echo across generations.